Our next presentation deals with reverse engineering Amazon's product search algorithm. Our presenter is Pat Petriello, Head of Marketplace Strategy for CPC Strategy. Pat, the podium is yours.
Thank you, everybody, for joining as well. As John mentioned, my name is Pat Petriello. I head up Marketplace Strategy at CPC Strategy. I've been here for almost 4 years, about 4 years at the end of the month. And prior to working at CPC, I was working at Amazon in their seller services department. All right, thank you, John. Now I can use my slides. Perfect. And I was working up in Seattle on Amazon's seller services team. My primary role there was launching and growing the businesses of sellers and vendors on Amazon, getting them to adopt the full flywheel of tools and services that Amazon made available. So that was from advertising to content to fulfillment to brand protection, any number of those programs, and was also previously a seller myself on the platform. So I'm pretty familiar with some of the different challenges that sellers and vendors will face on Amazon. A few of the logistics, John already touched on them a little bit. We have the recording. The slides will be sent out. There'll be a poll question coming up here shortly. You can submit questions as well, and this will be made available afterwards. Excellent. A little bit of background about CPC Strategy. If you are not familiar with us or have not heard of us, we were founded in 2007. It's over 10 years old now. We sit at the intersection of digital retail. So that's at the intersection of Google, Facebook, and Amazon. We're entirely retail focused, meaning we're entirely focused on matching intent, which is what our online shoppers are looking for, and those products wherever our retailers are selling them, through their own website, through social platforms, and through Amazon, which is where we're going to focus on today. One really exciting component that we've been focusing on recently is also some of the creative services which help empower conversion on those different landing pages at Amazon specifically. And today's agenda, and I know we've had some really great things on the conference today. Today's agenda, we're going to be talking specifically about Amazon, and we'll open that conversation with the digital transformation that's happened in the CPG space. Obviously, that's not breaking news, but this transformation from a largely brick and mortar business and having consumer interaction with products through that medium, and how that's transforming to a digital medium and the different ways and formats that that's happening. And then we will unpack Amazon's organic search algorithm. And that's a fancy way of saying we're going to look at the factors that drive which products show up on Amazon the way that they do. We've broken that out into direct factors and indirect factors. And when we make reference to the A9 algorithm, that's basically Amazon's search engine technology that operates that SERP, the search engine results page. And then hopefully we'll have some time for questions beyond that. So we've got some really good stuff to talk about. And where to open this conversation is the digital transformation of the CPG space. And we have some references here from IAB, from the Interactive Advertising Bureau presentation that you may or may not have seen over the last few months. And what is really happening in this space is there is this shift from brick and mortar to digital. And this shift is not just in where people can get products from, where consumers can find products. There's now a fragmentation in consumer offerings, and you can see on the screen here just a few examples of the different ways that consumers can get their hands on products that's different than that traditional brick and mortar path. And these smaller direct to consumer and boutique brands are really driving a tremendous amount of industry growth. What this means for us as consumers is that consumers have more options and more niche options. So if it's a ticket delivery service, if it's for used apparel, if it's for mattress delivery, all these very niche areas where consumers can now interact. I think about this too from a fragmentation standpoint, similar to what we've seen across media in television and in music as well. If you think back to the 1970s, which admittedly was before I was born, you used to just have ABC, CBS, and NBC, and those were your three networks, and that's where you could choose from. If you look at today, you now have Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, HBO, you name it, a number of different ways to consume media. And we're seeing that fragmentation and that shift happening in the CPG space as well. And so that shift is not just where those transactions are taking place and who the parties involved in those transactions are. We're also seeing different types of fulfillment formats which are available to consumers. So that singular retail fulfillment experience has now changed. It's now a variable experience. So subscription services, secondhand products, on demand, all of these things are changing the way that shoppers purchase CPG goods. I think just yesterday, and I'm located in San Diego, we just saw news that Whole Foods delivery will be available through Amazon Prime Now in San Diego, which is I think the 6th or 7th market they've made that available. And so that's another great example of a different way to interact and get those CPG products that's impacting and shifting this market segment. As a result of this, big brands are slowly being nibbled to death. And so these challenger brands, and the way I think about them, many of them are born online, and some of them are actually even born on Amazon. And we've seen brands that were entirely born on Amazon and have upwards of 90% of their revenue coming through Amazon. They are chipping away at established brand leaders. And I saw an interesting stat that consumers regularly purchase 2 to 7 brands per year in a given category. That was the source for that's the Journal of Business Research. And so it shows that consumers are more open to brand trial, and they're not necessarily going to stick with just one brand per category for all their consumption. Now, despite this shift and this movement that's happening in these offerings and in consumer behavior, brands are still falling behind, and these are the legacy established brands. A significant portion of brands are still not selling direct to their consumers on the platforms that they prefer. Of course, one of the major platforms that they prefer, and I don't have to tell you this, if I could, if people could raise their hands and say how many folks here are Prime members, I bet we'd have a pretty healthy amount respond. And what we see here is almost half of consumers begin their online product search on Amazon, with another third going to search engines and then 15.5% to retailers' home websites. And one of the themes and the thesis that I want to really come back to today is this shift. There's a shift in consumer behavior from brand loyalty to platform loyalty, which is to say the old way of thinking about brand loyalty is how do we spend energy and how do we spend marketing efforts to get our consumers or our potential consumers to go down the roads we want them to go down. And that shift is now to, it's our responsibility as brands and as marketers to make sure that we have an optimized presence in the places that our shoppers want to go. So instead of trying to force them to a certain place where we operate best, it's let's find out where do our shoppers want to go and how can we be best positioned when they do. And we can obviously see here that Amazon is one of the primary places where consumers are interacting with CPG products. And I thought this was another interesting statistic is that 92% of shoppers who start their purchase journey on Amazon make their final purchase with Amazon. It's according to Power Reviews. So there's search intent, there's purchase intent around Amazon. The people who are going to Amazon are going there to buy. And I believe actually we now have a poll question, John, that I don't know if you can fire this up or if this goes automatically.
Yep. Are you an Amazon vendor, third-party seller / hybrid? And choose a vendor, third-party seller, or hybrid. Click on one of them, and then hit submit.
And this would be really interesting. I'm going to bet just based on the audience here that we're going to have a higher proportion of vendors. And some of you might be saying, I don't know what this question means. If you're not sure, this question is really asking, if you are selling on Amazon, are you selling through Vendor Central and selling directly to Amazon? Are you selling through Seller Central and you are selling on Amazon as a platform but selling directly to your customers there? Or do you operate both Vendor Central and Seller Central, in which case you have a hybrid approach? Not a ton of responses here, but enough to at least glean some insight. And it does look like we're dealing with folks who are mostly vendors, and then we have some hybrid approach as well, which is great. Excellent. Well, we'll keep that in mind as well. I want to reference some specific metrics for you vendors out there that you'll want to be aware of and you'll want to keep in mind. So let's jump into it. And establishing that there's a change in the CPG space and that consumers are increasingly shopping online and Amazon is a preferred destination. The importance of getting in front of those customers is greater than it ever has been. And to put some numbers behind that, is 70% of Amazon customers never click past the first page of the search results. I'm embarrassed to repeat this one-liner, but there was an old joke when I worked at Amazon that said, where's the best place to hide the body? It's on the second page of the search results page because nobody's ever going to find it there. And that is definitely an eye roller, but the point remains is that showing up on the first page of Amazon SERP is more important than ever. So 81% of clicks are on brands that are on that first page of search results. And so that leads back into this question of, all right, many people are shopping on Amazon. That's their preferred path. We want to have an optimized presence in front of them. How is it that Amazon selects which products go on this page, and how can we use that information to use those levers to help us show up more? Basically, how do we get found by more people on Amazon? And that's where we get to Amazon's organic rank algorithm. And there's two sections to this. The top part's the direct factors, and we're defining direct factors as those items which Amazon is actually, their A9 algorithm can actually index and scan. So that's availability, text, and price. We'll dive into each of those. And then the indirect factors are all components that Amazon's A9 algorithm isn't exactly, they're not indexing, but they're impacting sales velocity. And sales velocity is at the center of this graphic because it is the most important component for determining where products show up on Amazon's search pages. If you think about the difference in relevancy, how relevancy is defined between Google and Amazon, Google defines relevancy by what answers the question, what gets clicked on. Amazon defines relevancy by what gets purchased. And so they're using conversion data to drive that decision. And it kind of makes sense. If you think of Amazon, it's bottom of the funnel, high search intent. It's a conversion engine. Their goal is to have people find and buy products at the highest rate possible. So it only makes sense that the rate at which a product sells for a given search term is going to be the highest rated factor for Amazon. So let's unpack those a little bit more to have an understanding of how you have levers that can drive this algorithm. And like I said, we just touched on, sales velocity is at the center of all this. And whether you call it sales velocity or sales volume, it's how much are you selling in a given time period relative to your competitors. So if people search for water bottle, and in a given water bottle gets purchased 1,000 times a day, and the next most likely purchased product gets purchased 800 times a day on the search for water bottle, that's a pretty good indicator to Amazon that the 1,000 sales a day water bottle is answering that question. It's fulfilling that need that customers are communicating through their intent of searching for water bottle. And so sales velocity, we always get asked, what's the best thing I can do to show up higher and to get on page one? And the answer is sell more, which obviously becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because as you sell more, you'll rank higher. As you rank higher, you get found more. As you get found more, you'll sell more. And what we've seen with Amazon, and this is really a good thing from a consumer standpoint, is there is more weight on recency, which is to say Amazon is not just looking at how many sales has a product had over time, because then you would never discover new products as a consumer. You'd come to Amazon, and if somebody began selling something 10 years ago, those are the only products you'd find for that search. Amazon is really operating in a very ruthless meritocracy of what have you done for me lately, which is good in that it gives new product challengers a chance to surface, but it also means you can never rest on your laurels. And so just because you're sitting third for a given search on page one today or even at this moment doesn't mean you will this afternoon. A few things, other things which are direct factors, some of these will make a lot of sense and should also be familiar to you from your shopping experience on Amazon, is text match relevancy. This is the match between what a consumer put in their search query and the actual product content, the title, the description, the bullet points of that product. And I think the reason we have this screenshot is right out of Amazon's help pages, is to show that this is not past theory, this is not CPC's idea, this is actually just taken from what Amazon tells us themselves. And so there's a lot of hype or theories or myths about how this works, but we can actually look at what Amazon tells us about how the A9 ranking algorithm works. And so text match relevancy matters. If you search on Amazon for sunglasses, hopefully you're not finding a lot of ski poles, because that wouldn't really be very relevant. You'd stop searching there. Another direct factor that Amazon looks at is product availability. I know as an online shopper, nothing is more frustrating than that experience of finding a product, getting really excited about it, wanting to purchase it, and then getting to the cart and realizing it's out of stock in your size or in the color you wanted. And you think to yourself, well, why did they let me find this to begin with? And so product availability is another direct factor Amazon uses when determining where to rank products on the SERP. And what this means is that you're not going to find out-of-stock products, and it really also highlights that the cost of stocking out on Amazon is much greater than just the time period where your product wasn't in stock. So what you've lost is the lost sale when your product is out of stock, and also the loss in organic ranking, because you've now lost sales velocity in the time period where your product is out of stock. And then the reinvestment in resources, whether that be in promotions or giveaways or advertising, to recover that ranking and get back to where it was, that is the true cost of stocking out on Amazon. And for those folks who answered earlier that you're vendors, and so you're familiar, hopefully, with Vendor Central as your portal to interact with Amazon, one of the vendor metrics I would point you towards is the out-of-stock and replenishable glance view percentage. And really that's showing the percentage of glance views, and don't worry about glance views, really it's just the hits, the visits to the detail page when the ASIN was out of stock. And that's where you know that you're losing sales due to out of stocks. You'll find that in your Vendor Central in your ARA Basic or ARA Premium if you have ARA Premium. Pricing, I don't want to harp on this too much, but as you've noticed on Amazon, lower priced products tend to show up higher on the Amazon SERP. This is good to know, especially if you are a luxury brand, a luxury seller, selling a premium product. And let's say, for example, you have a premium $50 face lotion that's top of the line, organic, what have you. And it might be harder to rank at the top of page 1 against $5 or $10 face lotions for the general search face lotion because of that price difference. So that's a headwind. Now, there's other niche search terms that will have a benefit for you in terms of being luxury, but it's important to know. It looks like Dennis asked a question, what is a SERP? Great question. That's Search Engine Results Page. So the SERP exists not specific to Amazon. That's Amazon, Google, Yelp, anywhere you can conduct a search. It's what shows up after you search. So great question. And the correlated vendor, again, if you're in Vendor Central that you'd want to look at, is the LBB due to price percentage. It's the lost buy box due to price percentage. And that's the percentage of page views during which Amazon had the item. So basically it's in Amazon's FCs, fulfillment centers. It's in Amazon's network of warehouses. And you had lost the buy box due to a third-party merchant. The buy box as well is just that orange button on the right side of a product detail page that allows you to add to cart. Excellent. So those are the direct factors which drive where a product shows up on the SERP. The sales velocity, the text match relevancy, the product availability, the price. And there are also indirect factors. And think about all of these indirect factors as how they impact consumer trust, because consumer trust is what takes somebody from consideration to conversion. And so all the indirect factors are things which give a shopper on Amazon the confidence to add the cart and check out. Fulfillment method is a fancy way of saying, how does the product get shipped to you? And there's a few different types of fulfillment methods which exist on Amazon, but anything that is Prime eligible is in Amazon's fulfillment network. And that's either through a vendor offer, which means Amazon actually owns that inventory, or for a third-party seller, a marketplace seller, who's using Amazon's FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon, fulfillment method that allows their product to be Prime eligible. Prime is basically just a promise. It's Amazon promising the customer that they're going to get their products in 2 days. I know I'm a Prime member. Obviously, Prime membership numbers are skyrocketing. I know that numbers, they don't release those numbers, but that number is pushing up towards 80 million. And what we see is a massive conversion rate difference, typically at least double the conversion rate likelihood for a product that's Prime eligible versus one that is not. If you get to a detail page and it says shipped by the merchant and it's going to take 5 days to ship to get it out of the warehouse and in another 2 weeks to deliver, there's no way I'm buying that product. I'm moving on. And as an aside, this has actually raised table stakes on delivery for all e-commerce sites as well. If you're a Prime member, you're used to 2-day delivery, it's hard to shop somewhere else and see that you're going to have to wait 4 to 5 days or something like that. Looks like we have some chat coming in today.
I'm sorry, Pat, we had a comment that's come in. It says, Jeff Bezos says Prime is now over 100 million. So just to let you know.
Yeah.
That's
no,
from
that's
our alert attendees.
Yes, great minds think alike. I was just going to reference that as well. It looks like over 100 million. And that number is continuing to grow. And that's such a profit center for Amazon and their long game as well. I mean, part of that too is getting the voice order units in people's homes, and that's a whole other conversation that we can try to touch on if we have time here as well.
Sure. And another comment that came in, Pat. Yep. Another comment that came in. Valid UPCs from GS1 are critical to support accurate content and connect consumers to the products they want. Amazon had required UPCs since 2014. Not really a question, it's a comment, but perhaps you want to touch upon that.
Yeah, I did notice that, and having valid UPCs and accurate UPCs to have clean data on your page is really important. I remember as a seller too how important that was too. And I'd say not just UPCs as well, but having all of your product data and all of your product content from titles to bullet points to manufacturer part numbers is really important. Again, it might seem like a cost to clean up that content, but it's really an investment to make your products easier to find for your consumers. So it's worth it. A great call out there, Rich. So in the interest of timing as well, let's keep things going. Another indirect factor, and I'm sure you can all relate to this, is how important product reviews are in impacting conversion. So I'm going to really shock you here. This is going to really, really be surprising. Products that are rated higher and have more reviews tend to convert better than products that have no reviews. I know personally as a shopper, I don't like to be the guinea pig for a product. If a product has 4.5 stars on 100 reviews or 4.8 stars on 100 reviews, that's going to give me a lot more confidence. And this is also part of a reason why challenger brands in the CPG space have a place to compete against, let's say we have an established brand such as Crest on the screen, because challenger brands have the benefit, or all brands on Amazon have the benefit of using reviews as social proof. If somebody comes in and they see 2 products and they have the same amount of reviews and they're both 4.8 stars and they both have 1,000 reviews, that's telling that consumer that those products are basically equal in quality. And if one is $10 or twice as expensive, then it doesn't make sense for them to pay that premium if basically what other consumers are saying are these products are equal quality. So reviews are an indirect factor which drive conversion. That conversion drives incremental sales velocity. That sales velocity is what is really important to organic ranking.
Before moving on, Pat, a question came in before moving on here. What's the difference between Amazon's ad units and how do those work together?
Yes, that is a great question. And now that I look at the slide numbering, I think I'm going to touch on that question in 3 more slides here, after slide 143 in our book on advertising. So let's put a pin on that. That question was around how do Amazon's different ad units work together, and I think it's a great question, so we'll touch on that in just a moment. So keeping in mind around indirect factors, the different things that drive sales velocity. As you can imagine, promotions too, I don't need to be too long-winded here. Products that are on sale have a lower price, have clippable coupons, And again, coupons have long been associated with the CPG industry, and are now, there's basically digital coupons. They're called vendor-powered coupons too if you're running them out of Vendor Central. They show up on the SERP, so you can see here, this is a search engine results page, and we can see a save $5 click coupon. And so if you're presenting the prospect of value to a consumer and they can see that they can save $5, of course they're more likely to convert, which helps drive that additional sales velocity. So in terms of an action item, if you are not running any promotions or planning any promotions, then I would key on this even more so with Prime Day coming up in mid-July. It's going to be, I would bet, the biggest selling day in Amazon history yet again. That will be something that you'll definitely want to consider. Another area, and we've seen a lot of growth around this on Amazon as well, is how high-quality content and images have an impact on conversion rate. And it makes sense because you're really trying to mimic that in-store purchase experience through the two-dimensional medium of a laptop screen or a phone screen. So when I go into a store, I can pick a product up, I can touch it, I can feel it, I can spin it around, I can see, okay, it feels like it's got good weight, it's quality, oh, this is chintzy plastic, whatever it might be. You can't do that in the online shopping experience. And so there's A+ content, EBC, which is enhanced brand content, and then Amazon has recently just made available premium A+ content, and that's really great. There's some different videos and interactive tools that you can use with that. And all of these decrease customer confusion, increase your ability to communicate your unique selling proposition relative to your competitors, and increase the conversion rate. The likelihood that your customer is going to see that page, look at that product details, and then say, yeah, this is what I want, and check out. We've also seen, if you're looking at this from a pure profitability standpoint, on the other side of things, the products that have these implemented on the detail page tend to see reduced rates of returns as well. Because people are more confident that they're getting what they want, there's less likelihood that they're going to be unhappy and need to make a return. According to Amazon, there's about a 5 percentage point increase in conversion rate on pages that have these. Obviously, that varies between category. If you have a box of paper clips, for example, it's not going to matter as much that you have enhanced content because at the end of the day, it's still a box of paper clips. If you have a higher average selling price, a higher purchase decision product, like let's say an HD TV or a laptop or a telescope or something like that, then this content is really helpful to communicate the different product features of your product. And so it's giving brands the opportunity to actually differentiate themselves, which on Amazon has always been challenging. Now, and John, this is where I want to get back to that question that you asked before too, because I think it's really important. And an area where at CPC we spend a tremendous amount of time, I would say even obsessing over and thinking about, is advertising. And there are multiple different advertising units which exist in the Amazon ecosystem. These are under it's called AMS, it's Amazon Marketing Services. And advertising drives, as you would imagine, a tremendous amount of incremental sales. And the sales driven through advertising on Amazon, those count as the sales that go back to that sales velocity that helps influence where a product shows up organically meaning, right, you don't have to pay for that placement, on Amazon's search engine result page. So there is this quote-unquote halo effect, where you can help drive up a product's organic ranking through the sales that you're making in advertising. And there are these different ad units. There's sponsored products, there's product display ads, and there's headline search ads. So if you did a search on Amazon after this, let's say you did a search for HDMI cable or for water bottle or for wireless headphone or whatever it is that you're looking for, you'll notice at the top of the page you'll see headline search ads that have 3 different products that are part of the same ad and some text copy that's related to that search. You'll see sponsored products. They show up at the top of the SERP now. I remember going back to 2010, the first time they ever released, they were in big yellow boxes at the bottom of the page. And over time, just like in Google, those ad placements are now much more native looking and top of the SERP, so they're getting a lot more volume because of their placement. And in product display ads, these are really bottom of the funnel. These are showing up on product detail pages, basically right beneath the buy box. So right as a consumer is going to make a purchase decision, these show up and they introduce themselves. And so these help drive the additional sales velocity as well. And John's question was, how should we think about these? Do we think about these as, which one is better? How do they work together? When should I turn them on and off? And really the answer to that is the best practice for deploying these ad units are to have them run alongside each other, because they're providing value in a number of different ways. One is driving that incremental sales volume. Another, and this is especially true for sponsored products, is for keyword harvesting, which is a fancy way of saying finding out which search terms on Amazon your customers are searching for, where your product is getting impressions for those searches, where those impressions are getting clicked on, and most importantly, where those clicks are leading to conversions. The guarantees that we always make to advertisers on Amazon is a guarantee that 100% of your catalog is never going to be successful on Amazon, but also a guarantee that at least some of your catalog, and by catalog I just mean your product assortment, will be successful on Amazon. And so we use that advertising data to help drive that decision making, to figure out what niche can you fit in and where should you be paying attention to make sure your product is showing up and converting at the highest rate for the search terms that are relevant to you. So I know that's a lot coming at you about how Amazon's organic ranking algorithm works, their A9 algorithm. A few takeaways that I want you to keep in mind if you can, because let's be honest, nobody ever remembers 100% of these presentations, is that you should consider your content text match relevancy. So go back and look at your product detail pages and the content that you submit for them. Your title, your bullet points, your description, your EBC or A+. Do you have EBC or A+? If you don't, it makes a lot of sense to implement it. It's free to implement those on your detail page. So there's no reason not to. Another thing we harp on is data-driven decision making. So not selecting products you want to succeed on Amazon, or making advertising decisions based on if you had a good night's sleep the last night or ate a good breakfast or not. It's obsessive data-driven decision making. And we often find products that maybe don't sell really well through brick and mortar or through an advertiser's website, and they do really well on Amazon, or vice versa. And so really making sure you're using Amazon data, especially that advertising data, to drive decision making. FBA is kind of a foregone conclusion, either that or being a vendor. I just talked about the implementation of EBC and A+. And for advertising, it has evolved to a point on Amazon where it requires a level of sophistication where you cannot just set it and forget it, maybe the way that you could have in 2010 or 2011. The advertising space there on Amazon, it's too fierce, it's too competitive. Margins are too slim to just set up a few campaigns and then say, okay, I have that box ticked. It's also very dynamic in terms of that landscape changing and new product and search keywords that you'll need to be aware of. So leveraging technology to run sophisticated advertising execution is key. And again, all of these things lead back to sales velocity. So what Amazon uses as its most important factor in terms of where products will show up on that search page is how much has that product sold for that given search. Hopefully we've left enough time for some questions here as well, John. And I know I'm keeping an eye on
we have several
chat
questions,
box as
Pat.
well.
Yep, we have several questions that came up, Pat, and one, I guess, referred to the last slide. How do my advertising efforts play into how the A9 algorithm works?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so really, if you think back to that A9 algorithm, a huge component of that is just how much is a product selling. And we have seen, especially with the increased proliferance of the placements for ad units on Amazon, that we can drive a tremendous amount of sales volume through advertising. So the more sophisticated we're advertising, and really if we just want to boil this down in simplest terms, if the more people who we can get to see the product, click it and buy it, we drive more sales. And advertising empowers us to do that.
Okay, here's a question. What's the better route, being a vendor or being a third-party seller on Amazon?
That is a good question, and if we had another hour, I could probably spend just an hour talking about that. So it depends. There's pros and cons of both between being a third-party seller and being a vendor. And I know we had a pretty good chunk of people attending today who are a hybrid approach as well, meaning they're doing both. The biggest thing that this comes down to is control. As a vendor, you have far less control than you do if you're a third-party seller. And what I mean by that is, as a vendor, you don't control your price. Amazon controls the price. You don't control your inventory because Amazon decides when and how much volume to submit in terms of a PO, a purchase order, to ask for products. You don't control your inventory selection. Let's say you roll out a new assortment in your catalog. You have to wait for Amazon essentially to buy that assortment. You can't unilaterally make that decision. On the 3P side, on the third-party seller side, you have control over inventory and pricing and content and all of those different things. What you do have to pick up on the other side is that there's more work in terms of actually sending that product in. You have to stay more on top of customer service. I will say that for the most part, we tend to see higher margins on the 3P side because of the margins which Amazon seeks in, and on top of that, their marketing co-op, their return and freight allowances, and all those other different components which dig into margin.
Okay. Another question, how do the pricing comping algorithms work?
Yes, I saw that from Dennis. I'm trying to fully understand that question. I think what he's asking, my interpretation of that question is, how does Amazon take price into account when it's determining where products show up on the SERP, which is a good question, and I know price was one of the components we touched on too. That was one of the direct factors, is Amazon scans price and uses that as a factor, because what is Amazon trying to do? And think of the experience they're trying to create for their consumers. It's a good experience for Amazon shoppers if they tend to find lower priced products on Amazon. Now, lower priced products is what Amazon wants their consumers to find. That doesn't mean poor quality products. So if the exact algorithm, of course, I don't have, nobody really has it in terms of weighting, but as a general statement, Amazon tends to show lower priced products higher up the SERP than higher priced products. And as you can imagine, lower priced products tend to convert at a higher rate because they're lower priced. And so that increased rate of conversion also drives additional sales velocity.
Okay, another question. Can you elaborate on how total sales velocity competes with a particular keyword sales velocity?
Yeah, and so this question really is, all right, does the total sales velocity for a given product matter, or is it the sales velocity of that product relative to the search query which was entered in matter? And that's a good question. It's a little bit of both. But what you really want to think about is sales velocity relative to that search term. So for example, you can probably search, if you search water bottle and look at the results, and then you look at blue water bottle and look at those results as well, you're going to get a different assortment of products. And the reason for that is Amazon is matching up the intent as communicated by that specific keyword versus what products sold for that search term, for that keyword. So it's sales velocity relative to a specific search term, also relative to other competitor products for that search term. And that's why it's always an incomplete question when somebody says, oh, where does my product rank on Amazon? Because there is no such thing. Your product can only rank on Amazon relative to a given search term. There is no such thing as an absolute ranking. And so that's the way you'll want to think about it.
Okay, final question. Do they scrape against competitors, match, but if they lose too much margin, can they put lower on the search manually?
Yes.
I guess,
yep.
And follow up on that. I'm sorry, Pat. Yeah, follow up on that from the same attendee. I guess the overall question is the pricing algorithm versus competitors truly automatic, or can it be manually intervened? They have always stated that it's automatic.
Yeah, and I think that my interpretation of the question is there a way essentially to manually change where products show up on the Amazon SERP? And if I can ever figure that out, I will definitely have an island named after me because that would be pretty powerful. So no, the way to understand it is just how pricing has an impact on where products show up, but it is part of Amazon's overall search algorithm. So again, what's important to remember is that all of these factors work together in sort of a cocktail that is Amazon's search algorithm. So it's not just, hey, my product is priced lower than another product, how come it's not ranked higher? It won't be that, right? You could find a product that has more reviews and it's still not ranked higher because it's taking all of these factors into consideration. And so to Dennis's question, yes, it's happening automatically as a result of all of these.
Okay, final question. Quote, sorted by relevancy, end quote, is the result of A9 algorithm, question mark?
Yeah, I saw that one too. I was trying to figure out exactly what that one meant, and I think relevancy is related to text match relevancy. So how Amazon's A9 algorithm uses text match to the product's content to determine where it shows up, and that is a result of the A9 algorithm. The A9 algorithm is using, all right, how much does what the person typed in match what the actual product content is, and that's one of the other factors. So that's why, for example, and I forget what my exact example was earlier, but if you search for sunglasses on Amazon, you're not going to find any water bottles, no matter how cheap those water bottles are, no matter how well they sell, no matter how much it's been reviewed, no matter anything about, no matter if that product's on sale, you're still not going to find them because the customer searched for sunglasses. And so it doesn't matter what's going on with your water bottle because that will not have relevancy to that given search, so it won't be considered by Amazon. Amazon will throw that out.
Okay, thanks, Pat. We'll have to end at this time. Further questions can be directed to Pat. You see contact information on the screen, phone number, email. And thank you, Pat, for a great presentation. A little complex, but thanks for clearing up the fog around it, for me at least, and I hope there are many of our attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everybody.